The stars had always been cruel to the young species. Humanity learned this lesson slowly, painfully, over 200 years of membership in the Galactic Confederacy. They came to the stars with hope in their hearts and hands stretched out in friendship. The galaxy answered with cold indifference. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the S Resolve, watching the emergency transmission for the third time. His face showed nothing. His officers had learned long ago that their admiral's silence was more dangerous than any other commander's rage. The video showed 442B burning. Green fields turned to ash. Cities crumbled. And bodies, so many bodies, floating in the smoke-filled air. 2.3 million humans, farmers, teachers, children, doctors, gone in 6 hours. They had not even bothered to warn them. Their warships simply appeared in orbit and began firing. When the Colonial Defense Force tried to respond, they were destroyed in minutes. They were an elder race, one of the founding members of the Galactic Confederacy. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, or so they believed. "Admiral," Captain Bay said quietly, "the Council has responded to our emergency petition." Park turned slowly, and his hands trembled as she held the tablet. "They have ruled it a territorial correction. They say the planet was to humanity during the original settlement agreements. They had prior claim." "Prior claim," the Admiral repeated. The words tasted like poison. "And the people who lived there." The Council expressed regret for the loss of life. They recommend we file for compensation through standard diplomatic channels. Paused. They estimate the process will take 40 to 60 years. Park said nothing. He turned back to the window and stared at the stars. 3 days later, Ambassador walked into the Galactic Council chamber on Prime. She was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes. The representatives of 100 species watched her approach the central podium. Some whispered among themselves. Others laughed quietly. The humans were always so emotional, so dramatic. This would be entertaining. High Arbiter, the ancient who led the council, raised one of his 4 arms. "The representative of Earth may speak." Looked around the chamber. She saw the delegation sitting proudly in their seats, their scaled faces twisted into smiles. She saw the elder races watching with amusement. She saw the younger species looking away in shame, knowing they could do nothing. She had prepared a long speech, 30 pages of arguments, legal precedents, moral appeals. She had worked on it for 3 sleepless nights. She deleted it. "We asked for justice," she said. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the chamber. "You gave us silence." She paused and looked directly at the delegation. "Remember this moment." Then she turned and walked out. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. High Arbiter called for order, but no one listened. The Overlord, a massive creature named stood and laughed loudly. "The young ones throw tantrums like children," he announced. "Perhaps in another 1,000 years, they will learn how the galaxy works." The other elder races joined his laughter. Within 1 week, humanity recalled every ambassador from every world. They closed their borders. They stopped all trade. They went silent. The galaxy barely noticed. Human space was small, their economy minor, their military laughable. What could they possibly do? Send angry messages? File more petitions? The elder races had seen young species throw fits before. They always came back eventually, broken and obedient. On Earth, President addressed the United Nations, now called the United Earth Council. Every human watched, on every colony, on every station, on every ship. "They killed our children," she said. "They burned our homes, and when we begged for justice, they laughed at us." She paused and her eyes hardened. 200 years ago, we left Earth hopping to find friends among the stars. We found masters instead. We bent our backs. We lowered our eyes. We told ourselves that peace was worth any price. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but every human heard her clearly. "We were wrong." The council voted. The result was unanimous. For the first time in 147 years, humanity declared war. But they did not attack. They did not scream or threaten. They simply closed their doors and went quiet. The silence should have terrified the galaxy. It did not. The elder races continued their politics, their trade, their ancient games of power. They celebrated their easy victory and began planning which human colony to claim next. Only a few noticed the change. A historian named was studying human records when he found something strange. Humanity had been in space for over 300 years. In that time, they had only declared war 7 times, always against themselves. And every single time, the war ended only when one side was completely destroyed. Tried to warn the Council, they ignored him. Humans are weak, High Arbiter assured him. They have no fleet, no weapons, no experience. What could they possibly do to the? Had no answer, but late at night, alone in his study, he read the human histories again. He read about their world wars, their nuclear weapons, their endless capacity for violence against their own kind. And he wondered, if humans could do such things to each other, to their own brothers and sisters, what would they do to an enemy? He feared he would soon find out. 3 months passed. The galaxy heard nothing from human space. No messages, no signals, no ships crossing the border. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. They grew bored waiting for a response that never came. Overlord joked at diplomatic functions that the humans had probably killed themselves out of embarrassment. The elder races laughed and agreed. Young species were so fragile, so emotional. Perhaps it was better this way. But behind the sealed borders of human space, something was waking up. General stood in the deepest bunker on Mars, 3 kilometers beneath the red surface. Before him stretched a cavern so large it had its own weather system, and filling that cavern were ships, thousands of them, that officially did not exist. Project Prometheus, he said quietly, 200 years of preparation. Dr. Im walked beside him, her tablet clutched to her chest. She was the chief scientist of humanity's most secret program, and she had not slept in 4 days. We always knew this day would come, General. The moment we met the elder races, we understood. Understood what? That they would never see us as equals. Stopped and looked up at the nearest ship. It was sleek and dark, covered in angles that seemed to swallow light. They looked at us and saw children, primitives, so we let them believe it. The general nodded slowly. He remembered his training decades ago. Every human officer learned the same lesson on their first day. The galaxy respects only strength. Show weakness and you become prey. Show strength too early and you become a threat to be eliminated. So humanity had done something no other species had ever managed. They had hidden their true power for 2 centuries. Every failed weapons test, every embarrassing military defeat, every primitive ship design, all of it was theater. Humanity had been playing weak while building something terrible in the shadows. Lieutenant No rushed into the cavern, his young face pale with excitement. General, we have final confirmation. All sleeper agents are in position. Raised an eyebrow, all of them. Yes, sir. Every major military installation, every elder race capital, every strategic target in the Confederacy. Our people have been embedded for generations. They're ready. For 200 years, humans had taken jobs as servants, translators, maintenance workers, and traders across the galaxy. The elder races never noticed them. Why would they? Humans were beneath their attention, just another young species doing the jobs no one else wanted. They never suspected that every single one of those humans was reporting back to Earth. Dr. Im pulled up a holographic display. They believe they have 3,000 warships. Our intelligence says the actual number is 2,847. We know the location of every single one. And their weaknesses? Asked. Smiled a cold, sharp expression that looked strange on her gentle face. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern, very advanced, very secure. She tapped her tablet and a new weapon appeared on the display. It looked like a simple cylinder, almost boring. This is the Null Lance. It doesn't try to break through shields, it simply turns them off. The general stared at the weapon. How? I could explain the physics, but we don't have 6 hours. The short version is, we found a way to collapse the energy field that shields depend on. One shot and their protection disappears. After that, she shrugged. After that, their ships are just metal boxes floating in space. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind for months. Can we win? Dr. Iam met his eyes. General, the elder races have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. They have rules, traditions, codes of honor. They fight in predictable ways because that's how civilized species are supposed to fight. She paused. Humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We invented poison gas, nuclear bombs, biological weapons, and drone strikes. We developed guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, and total war. We learned to fight dirty because losing meant extinction. Her voice hardened. They have never faced an enemy like us. No one in this galaxy has. They think war is a game with rules. We know war is survival, and humans have never, ever lost a war for survival. General looked out at the hidden fleet. 4,000 ships, armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen, crewed by soldiers raised on stories of what happened to those who hurt humanity's children. He thought of 442B. He thought of 2.3 million dead. He thought of the Council's laughter. Send the signal, he said. It's time. Across human space, lights began to turn on. Engines that had been cold for decades roared to life. Soldiers who had trained in secret for their entire lives finally put on their uniforms. And in the darkness between stars, 4,000 ships began to move toward the border. The silence was about to end. The Galactic Council chamber was full when Ambassador returned. Word had spread quickly. The humans had finally broken their silence. They wanted to speak. High Arbiter watched the small human woman walk toward the podium. She looked older than before, he noticed. Tired. Perhaps the 3 months of isolation had broken their spirit. Perhaps they had finally come to apologize and beg for readmission to the Confederacy. Overlord of the was already smiling. He had prepared a list of demands: more territory, trade rights, formal human admission of weakness. The young species would agree to all of it. They had no choice. The representative of Earth may speak, announced. Reached the podium and placed her hands flat on its surface. She did not look tired, suddenly realized. She looked calm, completely, terrifyingly calm. I will not take much of your time, she said. I have come to deliver a message and then I will leave. You will not see a human ambassador in this chamber again. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A smile faltered slightly. 3 months ago, you killed 2.3 million of our people. When we asked for justice, you called it a territorial correction. When we begged for help, you laughed. His voice was steady, almost gentle. We heard your laughter. We understood your message. And now we have a message of our own. She touched a control on the podium. Every screen in the chamber and every screen on every world in the Confederacy flickered to life. The image showed Admiral Park standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by stars. People of the Galactic Confederacy, the Admiral said. I am Admiral Park of the United Earth Navy. I speak now to every species, every world, every being who can hear my voice. His face was stone, his eyes were winter. Humanity came to the stars with hope. We wanted friends, partners, allies. We found instead a galaxy that saw our kindness as weakness and our patience as fear. For 200 years, we accepted insults, humiliations, and injustice. We told ourselves that peace was precious, that understanding would come with time. He paused. We were naive, but we are no longer. The image shifted to show the human fleet. Thousands of ships, dark and sleek, arranged in perfect formation. Weapons that no species recognized gleamed on their hulls. The elder races stared in shock. Where had these ships come from? How had humans built such a force in secret? 3 months ago, the Dominion murdered 2.3 million human civilians. The Galactic Council ruled this action legal. They told us to file paperwork and wait 60 years for compensation. Park's voice hardened. We reject this ruling. We reject your authority. And we reject your assumption that we are too weak to respond. In the council chamber, Overlord arose to his feet. This is madness, this is. Be silent, said softly. The words cut through the chamber like a blade. A's mouth snapped shut, and he did not understand why. Admiral Park continued. Humanity has declared war 7 times since we reached the stars. Each time it was against ourselves. Each time it ended only when one side was completely defeated. There was no negotiation. There was no mercy. There was only victory or death. His eyes seemed to look directly at every being watching. This is the 8th declaration, and for the first time it is not against ourselves. The image changed again, showing tactical displays, fleet movements, weapon specifications. Data that the elder races could not understand, technology that should not exist, capabilities that everything they knew about the young species. To the Dominion, you have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally and hand over all personnel responsible for the 442B massacre. If you do not, we will come for you. We will not stop until your military is destroyed, your leaders are tried for their crimes, and your species understands that human lives have value. Park leaned forward. To the rest of the Confederacy, this is not your war. Stay out of our way and we will leave you in peace. Interfere and you will share this fate. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We want only justice. But make no mistake, we will have it no matter the cost. The transmission paused. Admiral Park's expression shifted just slightly. Something ancient and terrible looked out through his eyes. You called us young, you called us weak. You thought we were children playing at civilization. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but it echoed through the chamber like thunder. We are not children. We are humanity. And we have been holding ourselves back for 200 years because we truly hoped, that the galaxy would give us a reason not to show you what we really are. He straightened. You have run out of our patience. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you. We will not. The transmission ended. Silence filled the council chamber. Complete, absolute silence. 100 species sat frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Then Overlord received a message on his personal communicator. His scales went pale. His claws trembled. What is it? High Arbiter demanded. Looked up, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Our entire border fleet, he whispered. 47 ships. They're gone, all of them, destroyed in the last 6 minutes. His voice cracked. We never even saw what hit them. Ambassador turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused and looked back. We gave you 200 years to treat us as equals, she said quietly. You chose to treat us as prey instead. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Prey does not fight back, we do. Then she was gone, and the galaxy began to understand its mistake. The Of Prime had never been attacked. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no species had been foolish enough to challenge the Dominion in their own territory. Their orbital defense grid was legendary, 300 platforms armed with weapons that could destroy moons. It took the humans 4 hours to disable it completely. Commander Shin watched from the bridge of the stealth carrier Ghost Wind as the last defense platform went dark. Her ship had never been detected. None of the human ships had. They had built their sensors to find the engine signatures, energy weapons, and shield frequencies that every galactic species used. Humans used none of those things. "The path is clear, Admiral," reported through the quantum communication link. "Prime is open." Admiral Park's response came instantly. "Excellent work, Commander. Begin Phase 2. Across the Empire, similar scenes played out. Human fleets appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the enemy could respond. They scrambled to mount a defense, but they were fighting shadows. On the occupied colony of New Sol, Sergeant O led his Marine squad through the burning streets. They had landed 6 hours ago, dropped from orbit in pods that the sensors never detected. Their mission was simple: find survivors, protect civilians, eliminate enemy forces. Was 28 years old. He had trained his entire life for this moment. His grandfather had survived the 442B massacre by hiding in an underground shelter for 3 weeks. His grandmother had not been so lucky. "Contact ahead," whispered Private, the squad's scout. 12 soldiers, they're executing prisoners." His blood went cold. Through his scope he could see troops lining up human civilians against a wall. Men, women, children. The aliens were laughing, taking their time. "Weapons free," said quietly. "No survivors." They never saw them coming. 12 aliens died in 4 seconds, cut down by weapons they could not understand. The humans moved like ghosts, silent and deadly, appearing from angles that should have been impossible. The surviving civilians stared in shock as human soldiers emerged from the shadows. "You're safe now," said, kneeling beside a crying child. "We're here, we came for you." The child looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are you angels?" Thought about his grandmother. He thought about 2.3 million dead. He thought about the laughter in the council chamber. "No," he said softly, "we're something else." Far above, the battle for space continued. The elder races watched in horrified fascination as the young species systematically dismantled one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. They fought back with everything they had. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. They had more ships, more weapons, more experience. None of it mattered. Human tactics made no sense to them. The young species did not fight in formations. They did not follow the traditional rules of engagement. They attacked from impossible directions, used weapons that ignored shields, and refused to accept surrender until their objectives were complete. Overlord sent message after message to the Galactic Council, begging for help. "They are monsters," he screamed in one transmission. "They do not fight like civilized beings. They come in the night, silent as death, and when we wake, our ships are burning. Our soldiers are dying. Help us." The council did nothing. They were too afraid. The historian watched the war unfold on his screens. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to explain what humans were capable of. No one had listened. Now the galaxy was learning. He pulled up the human historical records again, the ones he had studied for years. World War I, World War II, Vietnam. The countless smaller conflicts that humans barely remembered. He read about trench warfare, about nuclear bombs dropped on cities, about children sent to die in jungle fighting. Humans were not more violent than other species. Many races had equally bloody histories. But humans were different in one crucial way. They never stopped learning. Every war taught them new ways to kill. Every defeat made them more dangerous. Every victory made them hungrier for the next challenge. They had fought the same way for 5,000 years. They had never needed to change. Their methods worked against every enemy they faced. Until now. In the void between stars, Admiral Park stood on his bridge and watched the flagship burn. The enemy commander had finally agreed to meet him in direct combat, ship to ship, commander to commander. The traditional way, the honorable way. Park had agreed. Then he had sent 3 stealth ships to plant explosives on the ship's engine core, while the flagship engaged his decoy. There was no honor in war. There was only victory and defeat. "Signal all ships," the admiral said calmly. "We advance on prime at dawn. It's time to end this." His officers obeyed without question. They had all lost someone on 442B. They had all heard the council's laughter. They had all spent their lives preparing for this moment. They had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. The lesson had been learned, but not the one they intended. As the human fleet moved toward the enemy, a message arrived from Overlord A. It was short, desperate, and filled with something the proud alien had never felt before: terror. "What are you? What are you?" Admiral Park read the message and smiled grimly. "We are humanity," he said to no one, "and you should have left us alone." 6 months after the first shot was fired, the war was over. The Dominion had surrendered unconditionally. Their military was destroyed. Their leaders were captured. Their empire, which had stood for 10,000 years, was broken. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. They expected occupation. They expected slavery. They expected the young species to claim space as their own, to establish themselves as the new masters of that region. It was what any elder race would have done. It was the way of the galaxy. Instead, the humans went home. Ambassador stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The chamber was silent. No one laughed now. No one whispered jokes about the young species. Every representative watched her with a mixture of fear and confusion. "The war is over," she said simply. "They have accepted our terms. War criminals will face trial in human courts. Reparations will be paid to every family affected by the 442B massacre. The military will be reduced to a defensive force only, monitored by neutral observers." She paused and looked around the chamber. "That is all we wanted, justice. Not territory, not power, not revenge, justice." High Arbiter leaned forward. His ancient face was pale, his 4 arms trembling. "You could have taken everything," he said quietly. "You could have conquered them, enslaved them. Why didn't you?" Met his eyes. "Because that is not who we are." The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. The elder races could not understand. Power existed to be used. Victory existed to be exploited. What kind of species won a war and then simply walked away? "We did not want this war," continued. "We never wanted to be warriors. We came to the stars hopping to find friends, partners, beings who would see us as equals." Her voice softened. "We found a galaxy that despised us for our youth and kindness. You taught us that peace is only given to those strong enough to take it." She straightened. "We have taken it. Now we will return to our space, rebuild our colonies, and continue our lives. We will trade with anyone who treats us fairly. We will be friends to anyone who offers friendship. We will harm no one who does not harm us first." Her eyes hardened. "But understand this, we will never be victims again. Touch our people and we will respond. Threaten our worlds and we will answer. The galaxy now knows what we are capable of. We trust that knowledge will be enough to prevent future misunderstandings." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. They called us young as if youth was a weakness. They were wrong. Youth means we are still growing, still learning, still becoming. In another 1,000 years, we will be stronger than we are today. In 10,000 years, we will be something this galaxy has never seen." She smiled, and this time it was almost warm. "We hope you will be our friends when that day comes. We truly do, but if not..." She left the sentence unfinished. She did not need to complete it. Every being in the chamber understood. President addressed humanity that evening. Her speech was broadcast to every human world, every station, every ship. Billions watched. "We have won," she said simply. "Our enemies have fallen, our people have been avenged, and now we begin the harder work, healing." She spoke of the dead, of the 2.3 million who would never come home. She spoke of the soldiers who had fought and died to bring justice. She spoke of the future, bright and uncertain and full of possibility. "We did not become monsters," she said quietly. "We could have. The galaxy expected us to, but we chose mercy over cruelty, justice over revenge, peace over endless war. That is our greatest victory, not the battles we won, but the darkness we refused to embrace." On Mars, Admiral Park watched the speech in his small apartment. He was tired. He had not slept properly in months. The weight of everything he had done pressed down on him like a physical force. But it was over. Finally, it was over. A week later, he returned to Earth for the first time in 2 years. He visited the memorial for the 442B victims, a vast garden of white stones, each one engraved with a name. He walked among them for hours, reading the names, remembering the dead. A small girl approached him. She could not have been more than 7 years old. Her mother stood nearby, watching nervously. "Are you the Admiral?" the girl asked. Park knelt down to meet her eyes. "I am." "My grandmother died on," the girl said. "My mom says you made the bad people pay for what they did." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said, "we did." "Are we safe now?" Park looked at the child's innocent face. He thought of everything humanity had done, everything they had revealed, everything they had become. He thought of the fear in the council chamber, the respect that had replaced contempt, the peace that had been bought with blood. "Yes," he said softly, "we're safe now, we made sure of it." The girl smiled and ran back to her mother. Park stood and looked up at the sky. The stars were visible even in daylight, bright points of light scattered across the blue. 200 years ago, humanity had looked at those stars with hope and wonder. They had dreamed of friendship, of unity, of a galaxy that would welcome them with open arms. The dream had died, but something else had been born in its place, something stronger, something that would never again bend its knee to anyone. The galaxy had wondered why humans smiled so easily, laughed so freely, forgave so readily. Now they understood. It was because humans had already conquered the most dangerous enemy in the universe: themselves. Everything else was simple by comparison. Admiral Park smiled at the stars, the cold, cruel stars that had taught humanity so much. "We're still here," he whispered, "and we're just getting started.